And this episode of ArcaSpeak is sponsored by ARCAT, and we'd like to let you know something new that ARCAT has, and it's called Charrette. This is another free service from ARCAT for you to take advantage of.
You can create a project, assign tasks, share and collaborate with colleagues and clients in real time, even simply promote your firm and services for the world to see. I mean, at the minimum, this is free advertising for your firm. So you can simply put up photos and create a portfolio for people to browse.
We've been using Charrette over there at arcat.com for a while now, and it is pretty cool. So just go over there. It's another free service from ARCAT. All you have to do is go to arcat.com and click on the Charrette login link right at the top of the homepage. And thanks to ARCAT for sponsoring this episode of ArcaSpeak.
And we're also sponsored by BQE. You're always going to have questions about your projects. Will your team meet your deadline? Will you go over your budget? How profitable is this project anyway? That's when you should look at BQE Core. It combines the project management, billing, accounting, and business intelligence in one elegant cloud platform.
Made by BQE, the creators of ArchiOffice, Core's unparalleled insights, native mobile apps, and powerful automation will transform your firm.
And I've been actually using Core for a little while, been setting up some projects in it and contacts and other things. And this is a really cool, what I like about this is when you log into Core, you get this dashboard and immediately it shows you your time performance, workflows, hours, documents. You can add documents to this as well. And this is really cool. I mean, for offices that need all of our offices need this kind of stuff, right? And we all have different ways of doing it, but rarely do all of these things kind of come together. And, where you have your contacts as part of your accounting system, which is also part of your time and expenses and billing and projects and lists. Anyway, I recommend going over to bqe.com/core, get your free trial, check it out, learn some things, and then really kind of see what your office is doing and how profitable is it. And being able to have access to all of this stuff is really cool. So definitely go over to bqe.com/core to get a free trial. And thanks again to BQE and their Core product for sponsoring this episode of ArcaSpeak.
This episode is also sponsored by Hager Companies. Hager Companies will be highlighting their new Hager-powered by Salto electronic access control product line in booth 544 at the Texas Society of Architects Design Expo on November 9th and 10th in Austin, Texas.
Stop by and hear about many of the benefits of this innovative and dynamic solution to nearly every type of facility at a fraction of the typical upfront and ongoing cost.
And don't miss out on their Texas, Oklahoma architectural specification consultant, Deborah Powers Walford, who is presenting the ADA Meeting Accessibility Standards on Saturday, November 11th at 3 p.m. Don't forget, that's Saturday, November 11th at 3 p.m. as part of the Texas Society of Architects Continuing Education Program. And don't forget to visit Hager Companies at booth 544 at the Texas Architects Design Expo. Again, that's on November 9th and 10th in good old Austin, Texas. And thanks to Hager for sponsoring this episode of ArcaSpeak.
Welcome to ArcaSpeak, the podcast that talks about what it's like to work in the profession of architecture.
Welcome to episode 127 of the ArcaSpeak podcast. I'm Neil Pan.
I'm Evan Troxel.
And I'm Cormac Phelan.
Hey, did you guys see that tweet by AIA National this week where they were advertising that Zaha Hadid's office was going to participate in a doghouse design charity?
I did not.
This kind of tweet just pisses me off about the AIA because they are, I just hate how cute they're trying to be about this. They put a picture up of this sad little dog next to his pointy modernist doghouse. And I just don't feel like they're doing architects any favors here. I know they're just passing along news from an Arc Daily article, and I don't expect the AIA to do marketing for architects, it would be nice, but I don't know that that's really their job. Like, we should all probably do our own marketing. But it just kind of reduces it down to, like, architects are out there solving real problems. They're out there doing amazing things every day, and instead they're talking about doghouse design charities. And the picture that they showed wasn't even the Zaha Hadid doghouse. Like,
right, it was that.
What the hell? Who is running their social media channel over there? And who approved that? Like, this goes back to that episode we did a while back when Ivy and them responded to Trump, when the Trump election, right? And it was like, who's running the show over there? Like, what are the priorities of AIA National? And what are they on Twitter? Jeez.
Do you have something against dogs? I mean, what is this, Evan?
Yeah, no, I don't want them to be cute and diminishing, and it's like I get, like, I can stand in somebody's shoes who's like, oh yeah, that's cute, yeah, that those are kind of cool, but at the same time, like, there's people doing real crap out there that, like, is serious business, and, like, look at all the relief efforts that are going on around the world, and it's what, and they're tweeting about doghouses that probably cost, like, I don't know how much, $20,000 for a freaking doghouse, and like, people can't even afford the kind of architecture. Ugh.
Yeah, and I totally get where you're coming from, because, I mean, though it's kind of cute and it's a little bit of levity and otherwise mundane, kind of maybe Monday or something like that, who knows, they're showing the architecture or whatever the hell they're wanting to call it, but they could actually be showing and showcasing all of the cool efforts that are going on for all this different disaster relief.
Yeah.
That's actually what we really should be talking about. Is it is for a charity, and it is raising money for pets, but we've had several hurricanes and other natural disasters, the fires in California.
Yeah, like, Neil's like 100 miles away from these crazy, devastating fires, and they're tweeting about doghouses.
And there is a huge effort by the architectural community to raise awareness, raise money, and other things for that kind of work. Let's showcase that.
Maybe they are. I don't follow the AIA's Twitter feed that closely, and it just did come across my timeline, so it probably just caught me at a bad time. But man, I don't get it. I just don't get it at all.
Man, you've really got your panties in a wad over this one. What the hell?
Yeah, it's we pay how much? $800 per person per year.
Yeah.
And then they want you to do all these CEs on top of that, which they would love to sell you those courses, by the way, so that they can make a little bit more money.
Okay.
And then they're spending your money hiring some social media manager out there to tweet about doghouses. Excuse me?
Retweet
Yeah,
about.
retweet. Not even original content.
I was going to say, it's not even, they're not generating the content. They're not using that money wisely to generate content. They're just hitting like and retweet.
So yeah, I got you.
I don't know,
it got
guys.
It got me.
First off, they didn't hit retweet. They wrote the tweet themselves, but they are it is promoting somebody else's content. But I mean, come on, this is for what, Blue Cross's rehoming center in Kimpton, UK. They're promoting other community art projects led by the event organizer here. What is it? Outdoor Arts Foundation. And it's
a UK-based charity for that.
Well, all right, come on.
Americans.
There's architects all over the world. So why do we have to shit on the fact that it's a UK-based organization?
No, what it is to me is it's like the magazines. You're talking about architects who need no extra help promoting themselves.
Well, true.
That's all that gets promoted.
Yeah, all right. But I mean, they're going to sell these things. They're going to get these growing list of 80 architects, they say, designers and artists, actually. So it's not just architects. So they're going to design.
Have you seen some of these dog houses?
Well, yeah,
there's one where the dog has to stand up in it.
Have you seen architecture? Come on, have you seen the architecture that gets published? Some of it is ridiculous. I get it. So, but I mean, come on, guys. I mean, there's
a little glass roof one where the Labrador's laying down under the glass roof. It's very nice.
I don't know why you guys are all upset about this. I don't have a problem with it.
That's why.
It's not stupid. This is all right. maybe, all right. Okay, so maybe I'm biased, but the firm I work for, there are some pet lovers, and we actually do something similar in our office, actually. And Cormac mentioned the name. We call it Barkitecture. And every year, or at least the past 2 years, a group of people at the office do a competition, and they design and build their own dog houses, and then they auction them off at a local farmers market to raise money for ARF, which is the Animal Rescue Foundation here in the Bay Area. And so, I mean, we do the same thing. Now, we're not raising the kind of money because we're not world-renowned famous architects or something and designers, but we raise money for a local organization. I don't see this as being any different, in the fact that the AIA is promoting it might help some awareness, and it's going to raise more money. So what's the problem?
Why aren't they promoting it worse?
They probably would,
because our name is not Zaha Hadid, or however you.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They don't need any more help.
No, these architects don't.
That's why
they're going to raise a lot more money than we did.
Well, that's why they get invited to participate, right? Because they bring the name and they bring the media. So
absolutely.
No, I don't. It's just completely uninteresting and not of the topic of the.
So you hate dogs? I get it. It's all right, and just come out and say it. It's okay.
No, it's not that.
You're just send all the emails to evan@archispeakpodcast.com, and you'll get those.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have a problem with it. I mean, yeah, the dog houses, some of them are a little goofy, but look at the kind of architecture some of these architects and designers produce. So, it's no different. And if it raises awareness and they make more money because of it, good for them.
It's not a pertinent issue.
Okay.
To me, I guess you're right. It's to me, but I'm sure I'm not alone. So
okay.
Anyway,
like I said, send emails to evanihatedogs@archispeakpodcast.com.
Yeah, autofilter right to the trash.
Okay. All right.
All right. Hey, let's talk about MDC. So Monterey Design Conference. We went to the Monterey Design Conference, and after we had our episode with the chair, who was Anne Fougeron this year, and she put together a fantastic Monterey Design Conference, and actually it was her and Mark Jensen. They were the co-chairs of it. And I had a great time, and I thought we could just maybe recap some highlights for people. We did get to meet some of our listeners there as well, so it was a good time to be had by all. And again, the weather fully cooperated with us, so it was a perfect weekend in Monterey. Even though it was a little smoky up north, it didn't really inhibit anything that was going on down in Monterey. So, what was the highlight for you, Cormac? You can only pick one.
Oh, I can only pick one? Okay.
No, whatever.
The Monterey Beach.
Just the beach, yeah, just the setting.
Honestly, the setting itself, we've gone to so many different conferences, and they all feel like conferences. And the one thing that I really appreciate about MDC, one, it's in the same place all the time, or at least the 2 times I've gone, so that's my all the time.
I think it counts, yeah. It's all the time.
It's so very comfortable and laid back, and the setting just allows it to be something that is it's the non-conference conference.
Yeah, it's intimate. It's not enormous and out of control, and the setting and the church of MDC. I like to call Merrill Hall the church of MDC, because it's like it is very sanctuary-like when you're in the space watching the preachers talk. I mean, it's pretty cool. I mean, it is one of those things that inspires you. And again, we've talked about this before, but it reminds you why you became an architect in the first place.
Yeah. Other than showing up on that first day a little bit late, and then when we rushed to go see one of the speakers, we were all up in the balcony, and you guys had a hell of a lot better view than I did with my right behind the truss.
You were literally in the rafters.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, but that was the only time. They got better after that.
Oh, I mean, absolutely.
It's like Southwest Airlines. Everybody rushes for the seats whenever somebody's about to start talking.
got to get on that A list.
It's the Wild West. Yeah. Yeah. So we got there when Jeff Goldstein from I had never heard him actually say the name of his firm, but I just call it Digsaw because I don't know if he spells it out or what, but I thought that was, we got there maybe halfway through his talk. Fantastic work.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was just inspiring to see, obviously, smaller projects on campuses that were just great examples of architecture doing something interesting on these sites. It was really fun to see, and he was so down to earth and personable that's one thing also that I love about a lot of the people who speak at MDC is just the way that they talk and the way that they can relate to the audience and bring us along the journey with them instead of, well, I can't say this for everybody, but there's a big difference between a speaker like that and somebody who just reads their presentation.
Yeah, and the thing that
happened too.
We'll talk about, yeah, that happened too. And that was where I was going, is that there were a large handful of the speakers that made it more personal, made it all relatable, and most of like the I call them laugh tracks, but most of like the laughs and the head nods and things like that were stories that every one of us have been through. And every one of us could completely relate to what they're talking about, because they weren't just talking about all of these wonderful successes and this is my project and it's so fantastic. This was a project that we picked up from somebody else because they were fired, and we'll get to that one.
Right.
I mean, Jeff he made he talked about all of his struggles to get to a lot of these different projects and stuff, and you were just shaking your head like, yeah, been there. Or like how I loved the story of going to the quarry and looking at scraps, and the scraps were what ended up in the project. And you're just like, that's kind of cool that, that you had not just the thought of doing that, but then convincing the owner or buying in on that. And really, and I thought it made such a wonderful, and we'll try to find the project and post a picture of it, but just taking all of these memories of other projects and infusing them into this one project. It was just great.
Talk about making a new building fit onto a campus where they just took literally the leftover parts and broken pieces of existing buildings and merged them into this amazing stone mosaic rusticated base of this modern building. It was just, I think that's the example you're talking about. It was just so phenomenal to see. And then
Matchbox?
Is that what it was called? I can't remember. I mean, there was orange in it, but I think there was orange in every project.
Yeah, it was this one.
It was so awesome to see it. Like the first photos they showed, you couldn't really see it. And then they got some close-ups, some detail shots, and it was just amazing. And just for them to get the stonemason who just got to create a work of art and make it a part of this project, that was super cool. So definitely worth looking at. So check our show notes and click the link to see Digsaw's projects. I mean, they're really, really fantastic work.
Yeah, Neil, you said Matchbox, right?
Yeah, it's Matchbox.
Yeah, it's definitely Matchbox. And the great thing about it is you look at it and you just see like, there's even some humor in the way that they put that project together, because like there's a one odd like stone balustrade, like just one picket just kind of like popped right into the middle of this thing. And you're like, that doesn't belong, but it does belong, because it's like perfect little, like almost like a joke, but not really a joke.
Yeah.
So I thought it was great. And then just, the use of like, kind of like this exploratory use of these new emerging materials and stuff. It was really good. Yeah, the good thing is that so I get to explore these guys because they're local and a lot of their projects are local. And even some of their projects are on campuses that we even do work on. So it's good that I'm most certainly going to be doing some driving and hunting down some of their projects and just kind of checking them out. The Swarthmore work, that's the one. Those are the ones that I really want to kind of take a look at, because like I know we competed against them, or I don't know if we were shortlisted or not, but one of the projects that they got, some of the student housing, I know that our firm had, gone after it as well. So
that was a beautiful project too.
I love the texturing. I mean, to me, seeing all of these traditional building materials that I see as like placement for slate roofs, and all this other stuff, and to use them as like cladding on the side, regular siding, and just the way that it was used and stuff, a very traditional building material in a very untraditional way of doing it, and it just the texturing of this thing is
I think
that was one that I was really enamored with.
It takes me back to something that Neil said in the last episode, which was the twist. I mean, Neil, you talked about that, the entry to one of the complexes you're working on and how you split the one building into two, and that was the twist. And that's a great way to explain kind of what's going on here too, and I think that's kind of what you're talking about, Cormac, where they take a conventional material used in a conventional way and they flip something. They flip a switch.
Yep.
And so now they're using a conventional or contextual material, but in a completely different way to bring the context to the new project in an interesting way, right? Because maybe from far away you don't even notice what's going on. You get up close and it's like, hey, that's different. That's cool. I thought that was seeing kind of behind the scenes into that thought process was really interesting.
Yeah. And one of the things that I liked about him and a lot of the other speakers was their comfort level in their own projects, and just a lot of people who, when they give presentations, and we'll talk about them, it's like, that we're just reading from a script, and it felt very uncomfortable to even be sitting there listening to them.
Yeah.
And the ones that were just kind of like very fluid and stuff, they were the ones that were really engaging, and just that's what were the highlights to me.
Yeah, I wonder if that just comes with time and experience, or doing it a lot, or if it is a specific talent that some of these speakers have.
We haven't even gotten past like speaker one for us.
Speaker number one for us, yeah. We missed Weissman Freddie, which I heard was a fantastic lecture.
Yeah,
and so too bad we missed that one, because I've heard that the lecture and their projects were amazing. But the one that really kind of kicked it off for me, as far as, one of those aha, I know why I'm here kind of speakers, was Sue Fujimoto.
Yeah.
I felt like there was a great intro, and then he picked it right up, and he was just really calming, and it was just a really like lovely presentation to listen to, because I can tell why people like working with him. He brings this natural calm and also an intensity architecturally to his projects that it just was a joy to see the whole thing. And I felt like I could listen to him for 3 days straight, because it's like watching Bob Ross paint. I mean, it was one of those presentations where it was just like, yes, tell me more, I want more. It was neat because, in the beginning they talked about this toilet project that he did, and then he went all the way through it like set up the joke for the punchline, and then the punchline was at the very end of the presentation. And I felt like even just getting to that point, it was such an interesting talk to give. And then later on, I went back on the web and looked up a bunch of his projects. There's so many things he did not talk about there. I mean, he really edited the presentation down to make it fit his time slot. And there's just so many interesting projects, but I felt like it was just an amazing set of his work that he presented. And it was just truly inspiring to see his work and the way that he approaches projects so differently.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about you guys, but the toilet project was really, really cool. I mean, just talking about, and he's all about taking conventional ideas and making something extremely unconventional out of it. So what is wall? What is roof? What is fence? What is space? What is room? Anywhere from his pavilions to the box in a box in a box project to the toilet project. Like what is it? It's not just a room. I mean, it can be a whole garden, right? And I just thought the way that he turned that idea on its head was really cool to see. And man, I would love to be an architect like that.
the ones that really resonated with me, it was the ones that looked at the conventional and came up with the unconventional response.
Yeah.
Really kind of resonated with me.
And then for them to have to build another toilet just for all the people visiting the toilet.
That was great. We've got to include at least a photo of the toilet that now has become a tourist attraction.
It's a destination.
And
right?
yeah, and so people don't want to go there to use the toilet. They want to go there to see the toilet and pose with the toilet.
Imagine the stress of using the toilet, knowing there's a tour bus full of people outside waiting.
I wonder if they have a timer. Like,
I mean,
okay,
this way
you only
worse
get so
than a
much
rest
time
stop.
in there. There's people that want to use the toilet. Yeah.
Yeah, so funny.
His explanation helped because to look at it on
yeah.
the surface, it was like, this is stupid. But then once he explained everything and his thought process and everything that he did, it made more sense.
Well, and knowing more about the context,
yeah,
and how it's a place that is like an arts district or colony or whatever, where things are encouraged to be different, makes a big difference in the way
right.
that comes off, right? So if you were just scrolling through a webpage and you saw that, yeah, you would be like, keep moving, right? This is as dumb as the doghouses. But if you really stop and listen, yeah, if you really stop and listen to the presentation, the explanation, and unfortunately, you know, like maybe that's what it takes for a lot of people, but it was so fun to hear that story and to kind of get the build up to it at the end. It really was kind of the exclamation point on the end of the presentation.
We're kind of straddling into day 2. Neil, what was some of your highlights just kind of getting in there? Other than the picking up your wonderful co-host at San Jose Airport.
Yeah.
I mean, that had to have been the highlight. But
It was a nice drive.
A nice drive down, yes.
Yeah.
For me, honestly, a lot of the speakers that we see here talk about architecture that, quite honestly, you know, it's fantastic and it's really cool. And there's one person I do want to mention that is not an architect, but gave a very interesting sort of interesting talk, or at least let us into his mind and how he thinks and what he does, which was kind of interesting. We'll talk about him in a moment, but most of these types of projects that people show, at least in my 3 different MDC experiences, have nothing to do with what I do and what I do for a living and the type of architecture that I do, which is more in the residential and more recently in the affordable housing realm. And there was a speaker there, Julie Eisenberg from Koning Eisenberg Architecture, and her entire talk was almost all about affordability and their studies. And there's a book that they have called Urban Hallucinations, which actually I've already purchased and we have now in the office. And it's a very interesting take on all the different studies that they've done about housing in the LA area, and then highlighting some of the projects that they have done, and just very, very interesting. And it really, for me, was like, wow, there's actually somebody at a talk like this talking about the type of work that I actually do. Instead of the glass toilet in the middle of a field, we're talking about how they solved problems and affordability issues with very, very interesting projects, and how they tried to make them affordable by using different types of materials and different ways to put them together and such. And so actually, as a firm, I'm really looking forward to hopefully visiting some of their projects down in the LA area at some point next year when we do our annual residential tour of Southern California projects that our firm typically does once a year. We'll take a group of people down and we'll visit projects that of the type that we do that we don't get the chance to experience here in the Bay Area. So it'll be interesting to see some of those and walk through, hopefully, some of them. And some of them that she mentioned were under construction. So it'll be interesting to see, hopefully, them later next year when they're completed. So, and just her talk about how they deal with public spaces and how those work with the types of buildings that they're doing and how they're breaking, as they put it, conventional building typologies. And I just found that really inspiring, because it's somebody who's doing the type of work I do, instead of crazy, weird glass, I don't know, all kinds of weird stuff that we typically see at MDC. Great stuff, but it doesn't really speak to me.
But isn't it supposed to be kind of like that relief from your daily mundane kind of existence of like clicking and CD creating and all that other stuff, that sometimes it's just kind of refreshing to see projects that aren't your type of projects or the stuff that you do every day? It's kind of like that getaway from the daily.
Well,
I mean, that's what I liked about it.
Sure. But a lot of the projects, I don't know, I shouldn't say a lot of the projects. It just, the types of projects that we tend to see by the speakers at these types of events are projects I'll never do and don't really relate to. And while sometimes cool and interesting, it doesn't really do much for me, in that I won't do that. And while maybe inspiring in some ways, like the project you first mentioned with the way they used the stone at the base of that building and made that sort of a patchwork tapestry that turned into a great effect. That's inspiring, but I don't know. I got a whole lot more out of seeing Julie Eisenberg speak there, and just the types of things that she's doing that meant more to me than a museum somewhere that doesn't really talk to me.
I thought her talk was great, because it really shows how committed they are to the region and their cities. I mean, everybody knows it's a struggle to build the kinds of projects that architects do, and they are working extra hard to make them happen, and how committed they are to working with the cities to change the zoning codes, to be more modern, to get things to happen. And I felt like just to the level to which they are willing to go to make these projects happen, because they're good for the neighborhoods and they're good for the people who actually live there. They're very concerned with the cost of housing and the rising cost and who can afford to live there. And I felt like that was just really refreshing, because a lot of the speakers are really high-end stuff that is for a very small percentage of people in the world. And so I felt like that was something really nice and refreshing about her talks, especially. And I agree with you, Cormac, too. I think that what I like about the other kind of loftier stuff is that it's a look behind the curtain of thought processes and just unconventional ideas. And I think that's what inspires me to go back and look for opportunities like that on our projects, because that is something that people actually appreciate. When you're working with a client and they see you bring an idea to the table that nobody else would have thought of because it is unconventional but doable, I think that's when clients get super excited. I mean, we talked about this last time too. It's like when you can create something like that they can really latch onto, they love that, and that's what makes them want to work with you more. So I'm kind of looking for both things, I guess, when I'm going to MDC, and that's what makes this conference so different than any other architecture conference out there.
Let's just talk about kind of the size of the conference. It's not like, I mean, I was talking with a friend of our show who was from Texas, and he was attending it for the first time.
It's okay to name drop. We can do that.
Are we?
He's the Mondo.
Are we allowed to?
The Mondo Tiki Man.
The Mondo Tiki Man, Jonathan Brown. It was great to see him again. It's always fun to kind of get together with people that you don't have access to all the time and are like hanging out, but you chat all the time, and it's just kind of like I was telling him, it's almost like picking up the conversation where we left off. And sure, the conversation may have been digital and we're going into the analog conversation, but it was just fun to kind of catch up with people like that. But we were talking about it, and he says that even though it's a little bit bigger than he might have liked for kind of the intimacy thing, I still think that the intimacy feeling that you get there, where you got all these like little offshoot and meet up with like practically the entire HMC office.
Yep.
Apparently there was no work going on that weekend.
Oh, it's a weekend.
What does that mean? Aren't you supposed to work all day long, every day? No, but I mean, it was good to sit down and have chats with all these people that I know at HMC. And it was just, again, some of those people I haven't seen in 2 years from the last MDC, but it was just comfortable enough to just dive right back into where we left off on the last conversation, or just what have you been doing, or what's going on kind of thing. And that's what I liked about it. It was such a very laid back, comfortable one that you literally felt like you could talk to everybody there, because even though there was a lot of people there, it didn't feel like there was a lot of people there. It didn't feel like this overwhelming mass of 8,000 architects just descending on. Although it was kind of funny that the setting of being on the beach in Monterey and a bunch of people walking on the beach in black was hilarious. It really was.
Like crows flocking.
Exactly. Yep. You don't stick out like a sore thumb here, brother, because everybody else was all the locals and stuff that were driving their really cool 4-wheel drive VW buses and pop tops and all this other stuff. We were parked on the side of the road,
surfboards and stuff.
Going exactly, going surfing and everything else. And then you just see this nerdy clan of black-clad people walking
with interesting glasses. Yeah,
with interesting glasses and pointy shoes, walking on the beach. It was kind of funny to kind of see that, but it was just, like I said, it was the intimacy of the thing. It didn't feel overwhelming. Sure, there was a few times I had to kind of like step out and miss a couple of speeches just because they're, maybe a little too much for the, surprisingly enough, introvert me to have too much architecture sometimes. Or I don't know if it's too much architecture or too much architects.
Yeah, probably.
I think it's the latter.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I really loved the intimacy part of it and just making it feel like the unconference.
Well, speaking of the unconference, I think what was very cool about it, and I probably didn't participate in this as much as I should have, which is in most conferences, well, let's take the AIA National, for instance. They'll have headliners and speakers and other architects giving speeches, and your opportunity to meet or talk to them, it really doesn't exist because there's, as you said, 8,000 people or 5,000 people.
Like handlers, I'm sure.
Yeah, they have handlers and you never see them. And what's very interesting about an MDC with only a few hundred people there, I think, 800 or something attendees or something like that. I mean, it's not a lot. It sounds like maybe a lot, but you can I saw many pictures of people posting on Instagram of them standing next to all the speakers. So, I mean, you could just walk up and talk to them. And I think I should have participated a little more in seeking out some of those people to talk to them a little bit more. And in fact, one of the people I mentioned earlier a few minutes ago was Ed Felia, who gave us a talk. Was it Saturday? Was it Saturday evening?
Yeah.
I think he took the mic and
yeah.
And he's not an architect, although he threw us under the bus a few times during his talk, which was really funny. But he's a graphic artist and graphic designer and just does some not really my cup of tea artwork, but it was very, very interesting to hear his story being told about how he developed his own style and typography and photography and illustration, and just really, really an interesting sort of discussion about what he does. And from what I took out of it was this guy just loves doing what he does, and he just does it on his own terms.
Yeah.
And has become well known for it.
And he doesn't take it too seriously. I think that's something that I took away from it that architects suck at, right? Which is taking ourselves really seriously.
Yeah.
And you can just tell, like you said, Neil, he just has a lot of fun. Yeah. What was the one quote that he said? He was like, well, I'll do the job for free if you let me do what I want, but if you're going to tell me what to do, I'm going to charge you.
Yeah, exactly. I loved that quote. I've followed Ed for quite a long time, and I've always kind of considered him kind of like the punk rock graphic designer.
Oh yeah,
'cause-
totally.
Mm-hmm.
You can see the old album covers in his artwork. I mean, you can see.
Yeah, absolutely. You know the shitty little flyers that your friends put together for like, hey, we're having a concert or we're having a movie series or something, and they just kind of like assemble it. But there's a rhyme and reason. But I mean, he always, to me, every time I looked at his work, it was kind of, we had this conversation over breakfast.
Yeah,
These
yeah.
kind of. I'm an intuitive designer. I'm an intuitive artist and stuff like that. I do it more of like, if it feels good to me, that's
how you decide.
That's how I design.
Yeah.
And that's how he designs too, is it's got to feel right. It's got to be right to me. And if it's right to me, then maybe other people might get it. Maybe other people might not. And that's what I've always been drawn to Ed and Ed's work. I've got a couple of books of his that I've always liked the kind of like rebellious spirit of everything that he's done. And I've even mimicked some of his work when I first got into architecture school. Some of my presentations were very much an Ed Fella, like kind of knockoff.
Yeah.
So I was kind of excited to see his, and I liked how his his exit, what was his stage of his career is kind of like exiting.
Yeah. Emerging and exiting. Yeah. You talked about the different eras of people presenting.
I liked and appreciated the fact where he's just like, I don't do this anymore for money, and I just teach and talk about it because I don't want to compete with my students. They're the new generation. Let them go out there and do it, and I'll just talk about it.
Yeah.
I'll appreciate it.
Yeah.
I was just like, I can't wait for that part of my career.
It's coming sooner than you think.
Lot sooner for you.
I'll say my final thing about MDC and the presentation by, I'm not sure how you say his first name, but I think it's Shohei Shigematsu, the partner at OMA in New York, and his presentation was so fantastic, and the amount of material that he covered in his hour was amazing. But I just loved how he coordinated his life to all of the
world
major
disasters.
problems that we've seen, right? He's like, I was born here, I graduated college here, and and it was all like these major downturns, and he's like, I'm not saying that they're linked together, but I'm just putting it out there. And he's just so funny about it. I mean, and the graphics and the presentation style, and just he was just very real about it, and I loved him throwing out conspiracy theories about OMA and Renzo Piano's office, and they get fired from a job, we pick it up. We get fired from a job, they pick it up. They think we're in the same office. I just loved all that kind of stuff that they're doing, and it's not. I'm not a huge follower or fan of their work, but I really loved his presentation, and it was another one of those ones where I felt like, oh, this is why I'm here.
Two things about that. One, I had, I guess, a different understanding about the structure of OMA.
Yeah,
and
totally.
then it was kind of it was REM, and then everybody else just worked for REM kind of thing. And that's really not the case. That it really is just a collection of offices that do their own thing, which was great because like I didn't really know the New York office work, and him being the principal at the New York office and kind of the lead of that. It gave me a different impression of OMA, and I did definitely appreciate the work after he explained kind of how they got to the solution. I thought that was great.
Some of the stuff that they were doing with the fashion stuff, where he had the picture of him meeting with Anna Wintour of, I think, Vogue, and he's like, yeah, she started with the meeting with the glasses on. He's like, she took them off later. Because she's always with her glasses on, right? And then he showed the sketch, this beautiful sketch of the intertwined centerpiece that like went up the 2-story atrium, and then he showed what got built and how it was such a and that's what happens, right? It happens to everybody, even to them.
And that's what I appreciated about his and Jeff Goldstein. I mean, they were all talking about, those were the ones that kind of stood out to me as those three. And I saw a couple more, but then I didn't see some of the ones that you guys saw, and I didn't get a chance to see Julie Eisenberg's, which I really sadly miss. But I liked the fact that they showed as much of their failures as they did their successes.
Right.
And we could all relate to that. And so maybe, Neil, some of their work didn't resonate, but the fact that they struggle like you struggle and they fail like you fail and they succeed like you succeed, that's what I liked about all of the speakers, well, most of the speakers. There was one that, what to me was like so off-putting that I think I actually got up and left out of it because they really had quite a big disdain for architects.
Yes.
Like, wow.
Yeah.
Like, you really don't like us, but I'm glad you're sitting in front of us talking to us like we're a bunch of idiots. Great, thanks.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah, I ain't gonna drop that name, but whatever. That's what I really appreciated the most about it is the fact that we see them in the glossy magazines and we just kind of say, oh, Starkitects, and kind of have this, I don't know, feeling about them, but everything about quote unquote Starkitects that were there made them extraordinarily accessible.
Yeah. The stories about crazy clients and presentations gone awry and all kinds of stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah. I do have a definite suggestion, which I even filled out my little
the survey.
The survey and added there that they most certainly need to get Aaron Draplin there. I think that'd be a great, for me, that would be like a welcome relief.
Yeah, I wonder how that would go over.
It would be interesting, because like there would be a certain sector of the audience that everything that he would be saying and stuff would resonate with them and kind of charge him up.
But at the same time, he is such an anomaly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be cool. I would like to see that as well. That's a good idea.
I bet the demographic would be kind of like the older, more established architects and designers and stuff would feel maybe a little put off by him, or they're a little stuffy and wouldn't kind of, I mean, because I think he's like the second generation of kind of like the punk rock designer, where he literally is doing everything on his own terms. He has had to claw and scratch his way to what success that he has all been self-inflicted. And I think like even with Ed's talk, that it was very much the same thing, is that all of his success was on his terms. And you pointed that out, and I think that that's absolutely true about him and like Aaron. And I think people like that are kind of fun to listen to.
Yep. Well, anything else about MDC, you guys? We beat this one up too. I think we should probably
don't read your.
That's just good advice. Just don't read your presentation.
Don't read your presentation, please.
There's
been a few like low lights in the two that I've gone to, and it's been the readers.
Yeah, agreed.
I can read too. I just don't want to read your presentation and
have it read to you,
or have it read to me. I wasn't ready to be tucked in. I wanted to stay awake, and reading to me is not helping that.
Well, we all put some pretty good photos. I would just patting ourselves on the back here on Instagram. So we'll put some links to those in the show notes too. If you want to see what it was like to be there instead of just listen to it, it's worth checking out.
Yeah.
And then last week, did you have something else to add?
I was just going to say, and then definitely go to their website, which is aiacc.org/MDC, and just check out the links to all the different speakers and check out some of the work that each of these guys that we were talking about had presented to us, but also just go check out their firms and their work and stuff, because there really is, sometimes it may not be your cup of tea, but there is really some inspiring work that they're putting out there. And I think that it's well worth the research to see what other people that share this industry with you are doing out there. Maybe we can't all attend the conferences, but we can go out there and do a little research on what our peers are doing, and there's some really cool work out there.
Yeah, and I think it was a heroic effort for the entire committee to put this on. I know it's a ton of work every 2 years, and so Mark and Ann and Amy Orr and the entire team over there at the AIACC with Jana Itzen and Reed Kroloff emceeing the entire event. I mean, they put a ton of effort into it, and I think Reed even mentioned, there was some major snafus going on behind the scenes, but nobody there knew about it. And so they just really do run a really nice event. So kudos to them for putting on such a great event.
Yeah. And last but not least, I loved that when they had the movie night, that they had Saarinen's son, who was the director of the Saarinen movie, that is available, I think on Netflix, or I've seen it. I saw it before, but it was kind of fun to see it again with the director and the son who lived through all of that, be there and then speak a little bit after the movie. And just, I actually talked to him off to the side kind of while the movie was going on. He was weirdly pacing the sidelines, and I went up and talked to him about it because he said I'd already seen it before. But it was just kind of fun to connect to like the creators. And that was the thing that, Neil, you were talking about, is just how accessible all these speakers were. That, I think, is another thing that they should definitely pat themselves on the back for, is that they made everybody and everything very accessible.
Yeah. Anything else on MDC, you guys?
Nah, we've beaten that one.
Yeah. All right. So last week I reached out to the team at Architects Newspaper who put on the Facades Plus show, and they hooked me up to be able to go visit that. And I just wanted to kind of briefly touch on it because it does kind of travel all around. And I know they've got upcoming shows. They've got one in Seattle, and there's, Washington, D.C. and the Bay Area. And they just run this conference all over. And it's just for people who are interested in facades, building envelopes, different materials, upcoming new applications, and all kinds of cool stuff. And then kind of the technology behind it. And so Neil and Cormac, you guys didn't get to go, but I just wanted to kind of point out that this thing happens, and it should be on some of our listeners' radar if you're into that kind of thing. There was some great behind-the-scenes presentations on projects. We had Stanley Sadowitz was there. The SOM team was there. They talked about the U.S. Federal Courthouse downtown L.A., kind of did a deep dive into the detailing of the facade and the design build competition that they were part of, that they won to build that building. Julie Eisenberg was there as well, and she was speaking with one of the partners there, Nathan, and they had a great in-depth talk that was a lot different than MDC the week before. So we got to see even more into the housing projects that they're doing. Some more emerging talent. There was Doris Sung, who we saw at MDC, I think in 2015, where she had the buildings with the phase changing, not phase changing, but it's the bimetal, where it automatically moves when the sun hits it, and it self-shades itself. I don't know if you guys remember that or not, but that was pretty cool. With Alvin.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so she was there presenting on kind of these mechanical facades that don't have any mechanics. It's all self-performing shading and really, really interesting stuff. Alvin Huang from Synthesis Design was there. There was one of the computational designers who worked at Morphosis for a long time was there, showing a bunch of different projects that he's done. So lots of high-tech stuff for the most part. But then I just wanted to point out the very last talk was given by Alice Kim, who we interviewed on this show back before MDC 2015 because she chaired that conference. And she was talking about a few of their projects. And I just thought it was kind of interesting, maybe as kind of an ending topic here, to talk about what she brought up as how do you design buildings and what is their place in the world in the age of the selfie? Because the thesis behind this was you never know where like the selfie moment is in your building. And it's not like we even think about this, right? But we kind of know as designers of projects, like where the moments are. But what was interesting about her talk was she's like, but we don't know. And the users are the ones who pick it. And so what was funny was like she had talked about, there's a building right here in my hometown, which I ran past the other night. It's the Roberts Pavilion. And she showed it's a giant gymnasium complex building. And it is an interesting building. It's got a neat facade on it. And she had designed several different aspects to this building where she thought like this is the money right here, and she's like, but I was wrong. It was real, because now she just pulls up Instagram on her phone and everybody can geotag their photos, right? So she can pull up that location and see where people are taking their photos of the building. And I thought it was just kind of an interesting kind of social commentary / something to be aware of when you're designing, because it's super interesting to see how people see your buildings. And this isn't just the users, right? It's not just I shouldn't say that. It's not typically the people that you're dealing with who are your clients. It's your clients' clients, right? Who are the ones who are posting these things and showing your building off as a backdrop. And it really becomes this thing that frames this kind of selfie moment, or as the backdrop to that selfie moment. And I thought it was just kind of an interesting time that we live in, where photography is ubiquitous. I mean, everybody's got a camera in their pocket all the time. I just wanted to throw that out there.
I like it because what you're not maybe thinking about when you're designing it is how it's going to be viewed, not just by your clients, but as you said, the client's clients or the passerby or something like that. So now you start thinking about, well, how is this view going to be framed out, or how's that view going to be framed out? And yeah, we're supposed to think about all that stuff. And sometimes we make back of house, big podcast air quotes, type facades. And now, you never know if the back of house is going to be the front of house for somebody else. And you got to push yourself to think about and again, as you should, think about every facade as an equal and opposite partner to every other facade. And it should be something that you think about on every aspect, because it's not just going to be your service yard entrance. Well, your service yard entrance might be a view that you may not think of being presented, but it will be presented.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing I think for me now is like, oh man, I need to look up my projects on social media, the locations, and see if what's going on with that, because I'm interested, because this is like the social fabric of the way the project is presented to and used by people in a much different way than we think of our users, right? They like you said, they could just be passing by. They could be going through the back door. They could be doing just about anything, and you never know how it's going to show up and be presented to the rest of the world. And so I just think that it's interesting, the whole idea of placemaking in the age of the selfie, because I mean, it's everywhere. It is absolutely everywhere. So how are our projects showing up in there? So I would just encourage everybody to go out, get on social media, start looking up stuff by location. Look at your projects. Look at projects in your city. Look at what's going on and see what people are doing with them, because what the heck? I mean, who saw this coming 10 years ago? Right? There was no iPhone, right? And so people were using real cameras back then, again, air quotes. And now you've got a real camera, like a pretty badass camera in your pocket. And do we think about this when we're designing spaces and places on campuses, in complexes, or one-off object in the field kind of thing? There's just so many ways to think about this. How does it actually blend into this other layer of cultural fabric, the social fabric that's out there?
Right.
Anyway, so there's your end of episode charge. Get out there and look at your stuff. see what's going on. How are people perceiving it? Because it's going to be an interesting kind of aha moment, I think, when you start to see how other people are looking at and using your architecture as a backdrop. That was it. It was cool conference. I hope you guys can go to them too. So definitely check out Facades Plus. We'll put a link to that in the show notes.
I was just looking at their website, and though they do have some of their conferences for early 2018 posted, they don't have the full 2018 kind of like rundown yet, but not coming close yet, but it looks like they do come to DC often, so I'm going to be looking forward to that. Yeah,
and so thanks to Marty and Diana who helped make that happen. And if you guys do happen to go to a Facades Plus, definitely worth it. I felt like the first day was all keynote talks all through the day, and then the second day was some workshops where you can get even some continuing education credits. But a lot of neat stuff going on there. So definitely worth seeing what the latest in facade technologies are. Whether you can afford them or not, that's a different story on our public projects. But it's still neat to see what advancements are happening out there in the materials world.
Oh, yeah. It's just kind of like that similar philosophy to like the car companies who invest all this money in their race car technology.
It trickles down, right? Yeah.
Yeah, they're not necessarily doing it for racing per se. The racing is a test bed for what is going to be the general public type presentation of everything that they learn in their race cars. It may be something that right now you can't afford in your public one, but if it becomes popular, there will be the knockoffs, and the knockoffs will then drive the prices down of the originals. And now you can afford to put terracotta cladding on buildings and stuff that otherwise you wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool stuff. I look forward to it.
Yep.
All right, guys. Well, hey, before we go, we'd like to thank our episode sponsors. First, we have ARCAT. Check out all the features they offer over at arcat.com. We're also sponsored by Core, powered by BQE. Core revolutionizes the way architects manage projects, time and expenses, billing, and accounting. Core saves you time while giving you all the visibility, flexibility, and power you need to grow your firm. Learn more and get a free trial at bqe.com/core. And thanks to Hager Companies for their support. Don't miss their Texas, Oklahoma ADA Accessibility Standards Seminar on Saturday, November 11th. That's coming up at 3 p.m. as part of the Texas Society of Architects Continuing Education Program. And you want more ArchiSpeak? Of course you do. Visit archispeakpodcast.com where you'll find links to our catalog of episodes. And while there, make sure to sign up for our email newsletter. By doing so, you'll be notified when an episode goes live, and it will include links, like all the things we talked about on this episode, to everything we mentioned during this show. And stay in contact between episodes by checking out our Facebook page. And I want to throw a mention out for the Ask ArchiSpeak hashtag. Make sure you visit our Facebook page and check that out, or hit us up on Twitter and make sure you hashtag Ask ArchiSpeak. You'll find links to all of those things over at archispeakpodcast.com. And remember to tell a friend and stay subscribed to everyone. And thanks for listening. And catch you next time.
Happy Halloween.
Ooh.
Eek. Now enjoy the music.
I joined the choir to sing. They're all competing for some other thing. I joined the choir to sing. I joined the choir to sing. They're all competing for some other thing. I joined the choir to sing. Party got started without